Have you ever wondered why some people seem to change their lives with ease, while others struggle for years with the same goals, the same resolutions, the same promises to themselves that never quite come true? What if the problem isn't willpower or motivation or even desire? What if the secret to transformation lies not in dramatic gestures, but in something far quieter, far smaller, far more invisible? Today, we explore a book that has changed millions of lives by teaching a simple truth. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. This is The Wisdom of Atomic Habits, written by James Clear, a writer and speaker who has spent years studying the science of habits, decision-making, and continuous improvement. Published in 2018, this book became an unexpected phenomenon, not because it promised overnight success, but because it offered something rarer, a realistic path to becoming the person you want to be. James Clear didn't write this book from a place of perfection. He wrote it after his own journey through struggle and recovery. As a high school student, he was struck in the face by a baseball bat during a game. The injury was severe. His path back to normal life, let alone athletic performance, seemed impossible. Yet through small, consistent actions, through tiny improvements repeated over time, he not only recovered but went on to become an academic All-American athlete in college. This experience taught him something profound. Transformation doesn't require grand moments. It requires small moments repeated. So what exactly are atomic habits? The word atomic has two meanings here. First, it refers to something tiny, almost invisible. Second, it refers to something powerful, like the energy contained in an atom. These habits are the small routines and behaviors that shape our days, often without us even noticing. They are atomic in their size and atomic in their impact. 1% better every day doesn't sound like much, but over the course of a year, that compounds into something extraordinary. You become 37 times better, not through intensity, but through consistency. Consider this. Imagine you're on an airplane flying from Los Angeles to New York. If the pilot adjusts the heading by just a few degrees, you won't notice it at first. The plane still feels like it's going in the right direction. But over time, that tiny shift changes everything. Instead of landing in New York, you end up in Washington, D.C., or even another city entirely. Your habits are like that heading. A small change today may not feel significant, but the direction you're pointing matters more than the speed you're moving. Most of us have been taught to focus on outcomes. We want to lose 20 pounds, we want to write a book, we want to build a business. And so we set goals, we make plans, we declare our intentions. But goals alone don't change behavior. In fact, winners and losers often have the same goals. Every athlete wants to win the championship. Every writer wants to publish a bestseller. The goal doesn't distinguish them. What distinguishes them is the system, the daily process, the identity they build through repetition. James Clear invites us to think differently about change. Instead of asking what you want to achieve, ask who you want to become. This shift is subtle, but it changes everything. When you focus on outcomes, you're motivated by external results. When you focus on identity, you're motivated by internal alignment. You don't just want to run a marathon, you want to become a runner. You don't just want to play an instrument once, you want to become a musician. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to be. Let's imagine a person who wants to quit smoking. If they focus only on the goal, they might say, "I'm trying to quit." But if they focus on identity, they say, "I'm not a smoker." The difference seems small, but it's everything. One is about resisting temptation. The other is about alignment with self. One requires constant willpower. The other becomes natural. So how do we build these identity-based habits? James Clear offers a framework, a simple model that makes habit formation not only understandable but doable. Every habit follows a loop: cue, craving, response, reward. The cue triggers your brain to initiate a behavior. The craving is the motivational force behind every habit. The response is the actual habit you perform. And the reward is the end goal, the reason your brain remembers this loop for next time. Understanding this loop changes the game. If you want to build a good habit, you make the cue obvious, the craving attractive, the response easy, and the reward satisfying. If you want to break a bad habit, you do the opposite. You make the cue invisible, the craving unattractive, the response difficult, and the reward unsatisfying. Let's bring this to life. Imagine someone who wants to read more books. They love the idea of reading, but at the end of the day, they're too tired and the television is just easier. How do they change this? First, make the cue obvious. Place a book on your pillow every morning. When you see it at night, you're reminded. Second, make it attractive. Choose books you genuinely want to read, not books you think you should read. Third, make it easy. Commit to reading just one page. That's all. Just one page. And fourth, make it satisfying. Track your progress. Mark each day you read on a calendar. The visual progress becomes its own reward. Now imagine someone who wants to stop scrolling endlessly on their phone. They can reverse the steps. Make the cue invisible by deleting social media apps or logging out after each use. Make it unattractive by reflecting on how empty you feel after hours of scrolling. Make it difficult by adding friction, perhaps leaving your phone in another room at night. And make it unsatisfying by removing the notifications, the instant rewards that keep you coming back. One of the most powerful ideas in Atomic Habits is the concept of environment design. We often believe that change is about self-control, about sheer determination. But James Clear reminds us that our environment shapes our behavior far more than we realize. Willpower is a limited resource. Environment is a constant influence. If you want to eat healthier, don't rely on discipline alone. Remove the junk food from your house. If you want to practice guitar, leave the guitar out on a stand, not hidden in a closet. If you want to write, create a space dedicated only to writing. Your environment should make good habits easier and bad habits harder. There's a story James Clear tells about a researcher who studied hospital hand hygiene. Doctors and nurses knew they should wash their hands, but compliance was low. No amount of education or reminders seemed to help. Then someone tried something different. They moved the hand sanitizer dispensers closer to the patients, just a few feet. That small change led to a dramatic increase in hand washing. The behavior didn't require more knowledge or more willpower. It required less friction. This is the essence of the 2-minute rule, another idea that transforms how we approach change. Most habits can be scaled down to a 2-minute version. Want to run every day? Start by putting on your running shoes. Want to meditate? Sit down and breathe for 2 minutes. Want to study a new language? Open the app. The goal isn't to do the full habit right away. The goal is to show up, to establish the identity, to prove to yourself that you are the kind of person who does this thing. Once you show up consistently, the habit naturally expands. But here's the truth that many self-help books avoid. Change is not a straight line. You will have bad days. You will miss a workout. You will eat the cookie. You will skip the meditation. James Clear doesn't pretend otherwise. What he offers instead is grace. He reminds us that missing once is an accident. Missing twice is the start of a new habit. The key is never to miss twice. One slip doesn't define you, but 2 slips start a pattern. So when you stumble, get back on track as quickly as possible. The sooner you return, the stronger your identity becomes. There's also something deeply human about the way James Clear talks about motivation. He doesn't tell you to rely on it. He tells you to design systems that work even when you're not motivated. Professionals stick to the schedule. Amateurs let life get in the way. The writer who only writes when inspired writes very little. The writer who writes every morning, whether inspired or not, finishes books. You don't need passion every day. You need process. And yet there's also joy in this approach. Because when you focus on systems instead of goals, you give yourself permission to enjoy the journey. You're not waiting to be happy when you achieve something. You're finding satisfaction in the daily repetition, in the small wins, in the person you're becoming. The destination matters, of course, but the real life is lived in the process. Why has this book resonated so deeply with so many people? Perhaps because it offers hope without hype. It doesn't promise that you'll transform overnight. It doesn't sell you a miracle. It tells you the truth. Change is possible, but it requires patience. It requires showing up. It requires believing that small things matter. In a world that glorifies the dramatic, the viral, the instant, atomic habits is a quiet rebellion. It says that the unsexy work, the daily discipline, the invisible repetition, this is where transformation lives. James Clear also reminds us that we are not broken. We don't need to be fixed. We simply need better systems. Our struggles with change don't reflect a lack of character. They reflect a lack of strategy, and strategy can be learned. This is liberating. It means that change isn't reserved for people with exceptional willpower or natural talent. It's available to anyone willing to think differently about how habits work. As we come to the end of this exploration, let's reflect on what we've learned. Habits are not the enemy of freedom. They are the foundation of it. When good behaviors become automatic, we free up mental energy for creativity, connection, and meaning. When we stop wasting energy on decisions we've already made, we have more energy for the things that truly matter. The goal isn't to build a perfect life through habits. The goal is to build a life where the important things happen naturally, where your environment supports your aspirations, where your identity aligns with your actions. So ask yourself, who do you want to become? Not what do you want to achieve, but who do you want to be? And then ask, what would that person do today? Not tomorrow, not when conditions are perfect. Today, right now. What small action could you take that would be a vote for that identity? Maybe it's drinking a glass of water. Maybe it's writing one sentence. Maybe it's choosing the stairs instead of the elevator. It doesn't have to be impressive, it just has to be true. Change doesn't happen in a single moment. It happens in 1,000 small moments, repeated over time, until one day you look back and realize you've become someone different, someone stronger, someone more aligned with the life you want to live. And it all started with something atomic, something small, something possible. If this story resonated with you, consider subscribing to Classic Books Explained for more timeless ideas. Until next time, remember, you are not defined by your goals. You are defined by what you do every day.